Yo, what's up, GameLeap? Coach Jesus back again, this time with a full rundown of the 11.6 patch notes that were released today. So if you want to know what Riot has in store for the 11.6 patch, which is just over a week away, then this video is all you need. I'm going to be breaking down in detail all the champion buffs, the champion nerfs, the item buffs, the item nerfs, how these will affect the meta, and whether it will be worth playing these champions in the near future. Now, there are so many changes here, guys, so as we go through them, I want you to tell me which change you are most excited about. Speaking of excitement, do you guys know what tops the list? That's right, the GameLeap website. To reach your max potential on the Rift, our exclusive fresh challenger level content is unmatched and it's uploaded daily. So get signed up, links as always in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it, and we're going to start in the same place we began yesterday's 11.6 video, and that's with one big item nerf coming up. The best champion in the game uses it, some of the strongest top laners in the game use it, and the nerf is of course a stride breaker. And what Riot are doing here is not what most of us expected. Instead of going after the dash range that they increased this patch, they are instead nerfing its HP, so down by 100. Now, does this matter? Well, bruisers and fighters aren't building it for the HP, guys. They are building it for that active which catapults them across screens. I mean, who has had to play against a Darius in 11.5 or a Garen or an R? Well, after these bad boys at the top lane get stride breaker, there is close to zero counterplay. The fact this will still be in the game next patch too means almost all of the mythic strength is still there. But hang on, some stride breaker abusers are actually getting nerfed, including the best champion on the Rift at the moment. So guys, if you've been taking advantage of Urgot this patch, as well as Gnar and Renekton, well, 11.6, these juggernauts are not going to be as juggernauty. Yeah, so for Urgot, guys, Riot are reverting the 11.4 buff that increases W's on hit damage, and this is huge because the God's rise to the highest win rate in the game didn't happen because Stride Breaker got buffed. It happened because your damage output with Titanic Hydra and then Stride Breaker and Black Cleaver was nuts with your W. Even some Urgots out there are still currently building Manamune and God knows what else just to make full use of the extra on hit in your purge. So this nerf means we're going back to pre-11.4 Urgot, who will still be solid, just not yet the best champ on the Rift. Now, as for Gnar, guys, Riot are going after your base attack speed, which hurts mini Gnar, of course, because harassing your opponent with auto attacks and trading with them is what you're about. It's not that big of a deal though, because you still have enough AS to bully that top lane, and you also have the bonus attack speed in your hop. And then, guys, we have the Croc, and I swear at this point Riot just hates Shurima, but yeah, the bonus HP you get when you tap R is down at later ranks, which affects your scaling, of course. And you're going to have to be more careful about just headbutting teamfights and pressing R as your get out of jail free card. But there's another 11.6 factor at play here, guys, for the likes of Renekton, Gnar, Darius, Garen, Camille, Wukong, pretty much the whole fighter class, to be honest. Stride Breaker isn't the only bruiser item on the chopping block, because Steric's Gauge is getting nerfed again. And not only that, but other items and runes in the game that provide healing and sustain are copping it too. So on top of the Gauge, we have Ravenous Hunter, nerfed, Fleet Footwork, nerfed, and Blade of the Ruined King, nerfed. So for Steraks, the amount of healing you get the longer you run a fight is down by 50%. But the silver lining here, guys, is that most fighters get Steraks because of the big ass shield it gives you via its lifeline passive, so it could be a lot worse. Then we have Ravenous Hunter, the rune in the domination tree, which has been one of the most dominant runes in recent times because it is that OP. And Riot are cutting out its base Omnivamp and giving you less per stack, meaning this now caps at 7.5% and not 9.5%, and this is big for so many champions. If you're a laner like Yone, Fizz, Anivia, Gnar, Aphelios, Samira, your sustain in lane is obviously not going to be as good, meaning after one bad trade, you're in trouble. You might not have the regen to avoid getting dove, and you have to give up a bunch of golden XP just to stay alive. Now for Fleet Footwork, so the cheese is looking at Akali and Sylas in particular here, both of whom we're about to talk even more about. Same deal, your durability, if you like, in lane is weaker because Riot are nerfing the AP ratio in the rune. So this will be felt a little bit early on, but more so later in a game when she starts acquiring some magic damage. And finally, guys, we have Bork. So Jax, Viego, Renekton, and Aurelia, your lifesteal is down 2%, which is important, but your Siphon passive is dealing more damage at later levels, so not all doom and gloom. But yes, your trading and sustain in that late laning phase and split push will be less effective, so an all-round tough patch for bruisers and fighters, guys. Make sure to let me know in the comments your thoughts. Now, I said we were going to talk more about Akali and Sylas, didn't I? Well, do you guys want to know why? Both are getting buffed. Well, one of you is getting buffed, the other is getting hard trolled. So for Akali, guys, there are a bunch of changes here, and yes, Riot have summarized these as buffs. I don't know what they've been smoking, but here we go. Your base HP is down, which is big in the laning phase, despite your HP per level increasing. When you auto attack a target with your passive, well, this no longer gives you energy back. Your Q is costing more energy at rank 1, so the first few levels of the lane will be tougher, but later on after you max this out, a lot more spammable. But the bonus damage your Q is dealing to minions at level 9, yeah, this is getting removed. Your second shuriken flip is dealing more damage at later ranks, and then the first part of your ultimate is dealing less damage at earlier ranks, and its damage type is changing from physical to magic damage. How about that? So with Fleet Footwork nerfed, Ravenous Hunter nerfed, and these changes looking like a general Akali nerf, I'm sorry to all you rogue assassins out there. 11.6 is looking more grim than D-Lift in that Pro Guards ad. Now let's switch up the mood, guys, and talk about some actual buffs coming to Sylas, even though some of your runes are getting nerfed. So your early to mid game as Sylas will be better in 11.6 because your W's cooldown is reducing at later ranks, and your passive attack speed is up over 50%. So the W max now makes even more sense, than the attack speed is hella underrated on Sylas. It allows for cleaner comboing and trading, so these are some nice buffs. Now seeing as we're on the topic of mages, guys, there are a ton of changes coming to mage items in 11.6, and I want to start with the buffs. Let's keep that mood lifted. So Rabadon's Death Cap, the most expensive item in the game, but the biggest power spike in the game, is down 200 gold. So yeah, it's still officially the most expensive item, but not by much. It's true that Rabadon's has been pushed to the side by Zhonya's and Horizon Focus recently, so this definitely brings it back into play. So if you're all about damage like LeBlanc, who we also need to talk more about, Vladimir, Vigar, Syndra, Death Cap after your mythic in 11.6 sounds pretty pog. Now the other major item buff is one of the best mythics in the game, and that is Luden's Tempest. So essentially what Riot are doing with the buff you can see on screen is making it more viable for mid laners who like spamming their spells. So Ryze is a prime example, and even Sylas, who we've mentioned. So the more skills you use, the more Luden's passives you're going to get, so more damage and AoE and more movement speed. Now as we're talking about mage mythics, guys, Liandry's Anguish is getting adjusted, and normally this means buff, but this change actually does sound like an adjustment. And what's happening is that Liandry's burn from its passive is there to disrupt tankier teams. So it's more niche, and this is interesting because with the Luden's buff, maybe more mages like Ryze and Sylas offer Luden's instead. But any of you mid laners out there, what do you guys think? So all that sounds rather lovely, right? Well, I'm sorry to break it to you mages, but 3 items that are built on the reg are getting jabbed. So Seeker's Arm Guard and Verdant Barrier are the first 2, and these are getting nerfed big time. Now apart from you losing 5 AP in the barrier, both passives are giving you less armor or magic resist per kill, and in turn the maximum amount of armor or MR you get is lower too. It might not sound like much, but it is, especially for Seekers. So if you're against an AD assassin in that mid lane, it's probably not even worth buying an early Seekers. Just get 2 cloth armors. Thankfully for you AP mid laners though, no AD assassins are getting buffed, nor are their items, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. But not too big a one, because Void Staff is also losing some of its power, but it's nowhere near as bad as the Seekers and Barrier nerfs. So you're gaining 5 AP but spending 200 more gold, and this is similar to what it was back in Season 10. You used to get the same AP but for 50 gold less. So with that in mind, yeah, definitely not worth sweating over. Now I did just say we had to dive a little deeper into LeBlanc, right? Well, not literally of course, and that's because she is getting perhaps the biggest buff of all time. So look at this, guys. Your W at later ranks, and keep in mind you max this first, it's costing less mana. Oh my goodness, who would have thought? I'm joking, this is Pin. Yeah, it's nice to have a bit more of that blue bar during the laning phase, but seriously, do any of you LeBlanc mains even care about your W's mana cost? The big issue for LB is wave clearing, so a better buff would have been to increase your distortion damage to minions by a certain amount, for example, but hey, this is what Riot have gone with, and at least it's not a nerf. Now before we get into the final round of big changes we have got to talk about, guys, it is the Cheese's last friendly reminder to check out the GameLeap website. You get more of the cheese, more challenger videos, more challenger guides, courses, you get the works. And our content isn't recycled from YouTube like other sites. It's fresh and uploaded daily, so you stay up to date with all things popular and meta, so click on one of the links down below. Now we're going to head our way into the jungle, guys, and there are a bunch of talking points here, and remember to let me know in the comments any of your thoughts on any of these changes. So the first talking point, Gromp is getting reverted in terms of experience, so when you take out that rotund toad, you're getting more in that XP bar of yours, which is nice. On top of that, Smite, the summoner spell, not the game, is going to heal for more, and this is a compensation buff to those junglers taking Ravenous Hunter, which is nerfed as we well know. So when you smite a camp, yes, you will be healthier, so for slow clearers who can typically get low while pushing their way through the jungle is nice. Now for the jungle champions getting buffed and nerfed, and let's start with the buffs. Now Xin Zhao, as some of you may know, is getting reworked, changed, buffed, adjusted, I don't even know anymore. But yeah, Riot are calling the upcoming changes buffs. Your base healing in your passive is lower, but your AP ratio in it is higher. So after you build some AP items, this becomes more worth. Your Q's damage is down at earlier ranks, so much for jungles in. Now your W, this is where the fun starts. Its cooldown is lower at later ranks, its range is up, mana is up, AP ratio is up, its cast time is now a flat half second, it deals more damage to minions the later the game goes, and it now deals more damage based on crit. Like, I swear this whole Zin's out change is a massive question mark and meme at this point. Do they want lanes in to be a thing? Do they want APs in to be a thing? What do you Zin players actually want, and what do you think of these changes? I'm not done, by the way. Your charge's cooldown is lower, but the dash speed is down, but its cast range is almost doubled when using it on a challenge target. And you can now challenge a target when your W lands, so you can dash them from a Lux E away. How crazy is that? In addition, your ultimate now lasts 5 seconds, and it has an AP ratio. I am legit scratching my head just reading this out, it's that perplexing. So would this make Zin better in the jungle? Who knows at this point, he'll probably be a support in a week knowing reader. Right, enough of the Zao, let's move on to Volibear, who is getting some insane buffs, and these we can make sense of. Your healing from your W's bite is now 100% effective against monsters, and your E's damage to non-champions, so in this case jungle monsters, is now capped at its level 5 value, which is huge. So your clear, your sustain, your damage, 11.6 Volibear is going to be hard to stop. Now 3 junglers who are going to be easier to stop next patch, one of these is Hecarim. So your Q is dealing less damage at later ranks, and seeing as you max this first, your clear throughout the early to mid game won't be as strong. Not to mention that Sterix Gauge and Ravenous Hunter are nerfed as well, so not a kind patch for Heck. Then we have Karthus, who is getting similar treatment. Your Q's damage is down at later ranks, and yes, you max this first, so exactly the same as Heck. Your early to mid game clear is slower, and with Ravenous Hunter nerf, you are going to be more exploitable. And then we have Lilia, and this is the first nerf she has received since her release back in Season 10. So your ultimate's cooldown is increasing at all ranks, and that's it. Okay, you're losing a bit more power because of the Ravenous Hunter nerf, but still, your clear speed is the best in the game, and having to wait a little longer for your ultimate means practically nothing. Now, do you guys know what doesn't mean nothing? The upcoming change to teleport. So what Riot are doing here, guys, is removing the home guard effect, so you can't TP from base with that ridiculous movement speed and bomb into a fight elsewhere on the map. It also makes it more punishing dying in the early game because your opponent has more time and chance to shove that wave in and recall, rather than shove it in like they would in this patch and get caught out. Now, you are getting more bonus movement speed as soon as you complete your TP, and the cooldown is down at later levels, but a bit of a nerf overall. Now, seeing as most champions that use TP inhabit that top lane, there are 2 more items receiving some attention in 11.6. Now, the first is the tank mythic Sunfire Aegis, which is getting outperformed by Turbo Chem Tank and even Frostfire Gauntlet. So it's giving you more ability haste, and Riot are also reverting the 1025 nerf, where they lowered the immolate damage to 10% from 12%. Well, it's now back to 12%, and this is nothing to scoff at. This means for champions like Malphite and Shen, your dueling is stronger, and for junglers like Zac and Amumu, your clear is better. So an underrated buff, this one. Now, the other top lane item we have to discuss is Iron Spike Whip, which is getting changed. So it's costing 100 less gold, but its active cooldown is increasing. This seems kind of worth because it is a nice early game spike for gold drinker users like Riven and Aatrox, but yeah, nothing to write home about. Now, how can the cheese forget that bot lane? And the truth is, guys, there aren't many changes affecting ADCs and supports this patch, but there are still a few. So the first is the adjustment coming to Immortal Shield Bow. So Samira, Draven, then you've got Yone, Yasuo, Aurelia, Fiora. You guys listening? The lifesteal is down 2% just like the Bork nerf, and the lifeline passive is changing. So it no longer grants extra lifesteal, but attack speed instead. And the shield amount is increasing. Now, the lifesteal nerf hurts for sure, especially with these champions taking Ravenous Hunter and runes. You know, you're not going to go from 1 HP to 2000 HP as quick as you are right now. But the attack speed is useful, especially for Yasuo and Yone, because your Q's cooldown decreases the more attack speed you have, and generally the more attacks you get in there, the more you lifesteal, of course. And the shield being bigger at earlier levels and even bigger at later levels is a sizable compensation buff. Will this be enough to make up for the lifesteal nerf, though? We will have to wait and see, but let me know your thoughts down below. Now, the next bot lane change I want to talk about is to Pyke, who is getting buffed. So your E's cooldown is decreasing at later ranks, and this is good. Maxing E second is now legit and allows you to make more plays and be even more slippery. Now, onto the final 11.6 change, guys, and this is an item buff. So for those of you playing spellcasting supports or maybe Galio mid, then you will be happy to know that Shirelia's battle song is getting buffed. So the active cooldown is decreasing, and this will allow you to impact a game more, of course, but the question is, will it be as impactful as Moonstone Renewer or Imperial Mandate, or in the case of Galio, Hextech Rocket Belt? Probably not, but still, a little more item diversity doesn't hurt. So those are the 11.6 changes, guys. Again, any thoughts, questions, rants, have a type in the comments. Remember to like the video and hit that sub button. This has been Coach Jigs, and it's all tomorrow's video.